Hello friends, now we are going to discuss how to design the questionnaire. Questionnaire is such a valuable weapon when you are actually going for doing any kind of research. As you all know that for finally getting the appropriate decision, what is required, you require the data. So without appropriate questionnaire, it's very difficult to have the data in our hands. Hence, understanding the questionnaire and how to design that questionnaire is so important as far as the entire research work is concerned. Even you also, for your MBA degree purpose, you are going to take up the project work in your semester 4. So then also what is required, you are going to frame the questionnaire, appropriate questionnaire in order to procure the data. Hence, so focusing on this discussion is very, very important. As you all already aware that, so questionnaire method is nothing but one of the primary data collection methods where actually set of the questions will be provided to the respondents, and based upon the questions they are going to give the answers. That information directly recorded by the interviewer, what do you call that, the schedule, or else sometimes the respondents himself or herself going to fill up the questionnaire. Then what do you mean by actually a questionnaire? A questionnaire is nothing but set of questions which actually meant for to collect the information. Then what do you mean by a question? A question is nothing but a sentence worded or expressed so as to elicit information from the respondents. What is your name? It's a question. What is your profession? It's a question. The answers, whatever you are going to have, that will be collected. That is the purpose of the question. Truly speaking, the entire knowledge accumulation starts from an appropriate question itself. The people who questions, they only will develop. Okay? So here, the questionnaire design means what are the precautionary measures one need to consider. We are going to discuss. So what is this? It is not every question that deserves an answer. Publius Cyrus. So according to him, some questions will be there, may not be very much useful as far as the data collection is concerned. But the psychological factor of the respondent is concerned. Few questions you need to ask before starting the actual data collection, like asking the name, asking the profession, other few kinds of the details. If you start with such a kind of introductory questions, what happens? The respondent is going to have that appropriate motivation. Stimulus will be created in the minds of the respondents, and what will be there? The data collection is going to be smoothly finished. Hence, all the questions may not be of important as far as the data collection is required, but still the presence of few questions are essential in order to motivate the respondent to answer the next followed questions. So these are the major decisions in questionnaire decision. So questionnaire is nothing but altogether an art and as well as the science. So here one requires considerable experience. The people actually very newly started to take up the research work, advised to take the help of the experts in that particular area is concerned. So here the major decisions in questionnaire design is concerned. The first one is what should be asked. This is going to be a very, very important question. Few kinds of questions, if present in the questionnaire, what happens? The respondent may not be having the wanted kind of positive motivation. Remember that the completion of the interview is going to be smoothful whenever the respondent motivated with a positive intent. So by asking few kinds of questions, what happens? The respondent is going to be irritated and they may not be showing that kind of interest to give what you called answers for the followed questions. Hence, while framing the questionnaire, one need to decide the kind of question should be asked. Few kinds of best example is personal habits would be there. So by asking those kinds of questions, what will they sometimes they irritate. So such kind of questions better to avoid in the questionnaire. Questionnaire means set of the questions. How should each question should be phrased? That is most important. The phrasing here is nothing but the setting up. Understand? The setting of the questionnaire should be in such a way that the respondent should have the interest. The interest should be created. Okay, in such a manner that with a positive intent, you should fill up all the questions. The next one is in what sequence should the questions be arranged? This is also very, very important. Sequence means order of the questions. Generally, first few questions should cover the basic information about the respondent like name, qualification, nativity, occupation, isn't it? These are all called the basic information. And after that, the classification of the information will be there for a few more questions. And finally, those questions should be provided so that the wanted information can be what to call collected from the questions. Such a if anyone follows that order, like few questions basic information, a few questions with what you call classified information, and finally few more questions which actually reveals the data for the wanted research. The responsiveness from the respondent is going to be good. So what questionnaire layout will best serve the research objectives? This is one more very, very important major decision. Questionnaire layout means how the questionnaire is going to appear. That's most important. So by looking at the questionnaire, the respondent should get interest one more. Otherwise what happens, he may be what you call psychologically stopping to answer, or else sometimes they may not be giving the truthful answers. How should the questions or questionnaires be pre-tested? Does the questionnaire need to be revised? This is most important. When practically you are going to implement the prepared questionnaire, before that it is always advisable to go for a pre-testing. So what is pre-testing here? Actually in the pre-testing what you are doing, you are giving the what you call the prepared questionnaire to the few selective respondents, and you are going to record their opinions. Based upon that, you are going to judge wanted kind of what you call data collection is going to be there or not. If at all any changes are required, you are going to edit the questions, you are going to edit the order of the questions, you are going to edit the what you call the words of the question. That's why always advised before practically resorting to collection of the data, what is required, you should what you called give the questionnaire to the few selective respondents, and even what you called the finally decided statistical tool itself should be applied, even the data whichever has been collected on what called pre-testing purpose. Then only the researcher can easily identify if at all any loopholes are there. If at all presence of loopholes is there, what is required? The sorting out those loopholes, or else what we call the adjustments, editings can be done. So these are known as the major decisions as far as what we call the questionnaire design is concerned. So these are actually phrasing of the questions. Open-ended questions would be there. So generally in the set of questions, better to reduce the number of open-ended questions. Like what is your experience when you visit a restaurant? It's a kind of open-ended questions. Here few responses will be there within the limited period, within the short period, and few of them will be explaining their personal experience, what you call, by taking more time. So most of the times better to avoid or better to reduce the number of open-ended questions. Fixed alternative questions. So you will be what you called observed. You already came to know that in the Likert scale, 5-point scale would be there. Like 5 options would be there. So the respondent will be what you call forced to choose any one of the alternative. Such a kind of what you call set of questions are known as the fixed alternative questions. Simple alternative questions. Yes or no type of questions are known as the simple or alternative questions. Very easy to answer. And specific information questions. So these are one more type of questions actually which actually helps to the researcher to collect the specific information. So these are the phrasing of the different types of the questions. This is a very, very important discussion. Questionnaire design process. These are the various steps. What is the first step? Specify the information needed. So immediately the reputed company's car sales came down. For that problem, what kind of information is required? As far as the present situation code is concerned, what you call huge competition is there as far as the vaccines are concerned. Foreign companies, Indian companies, so many vaccine schemes came to the market. Which one is more effective? And few of them advising that if you jab our vaccine, 1 dose is enough. Such a way, what is required, based upon the problem, you need to collect the wanted information. So if you know the information, the kind of information, whatever is required, the questionnaire framing or the questionnaire design is going to be very, very easy. That is the first step. What is that? Specify the information needed. The next one is the specify the type of interviewing method. One-on-one interviews would be there. Telephonic interviews would be there. Okay. Surveys would be there. Larger scale of data collection generally follows surveys methods. So based upon the kind of research work which is going to be taken, one need to decide what is the best method. Best method of what we call interviewing the respondents. The latest trend is many of the researchers are using what we call these Google Forms. You will be observing so many messages coming to our WhatsApp groups. You fill up this XYZ questionnaire. We are conducting the research work for XYZ purpose. So really the respondents shows interest, they start filling up that information. Most of the academic research in the sense, so after conducting these kinds of researches, they will be awarded PhD, doctorate. So nowadays, the scholars are using these kinds of what we call methods. Determine the content of individual questions. This is most important. Time wasting, confusing kind of information, kind of questions are there that actually leads to the what we call disinterest creation in the minds of the customer, and as well as sometimes what happens, it leads to the unwanted information also. Hence, what is important, determine the content of individual questions. The next one is design the question to overcome the respondent's inability and unwillingness to answer. Generally, this problem will arise whenever what you call health related kind of what you call research works takes place, medical related research works takes place. Few of them will be unwilling to explain their health condition. So such a time what happens, they jump that question or else they lie. Both are dangerous, understand? Hence what is required? So as a researcher, one should see that always in the mindset of the respondents, the positivity should be created. Confidence creation is very, very important in the minds of the respondent. Small doubt as far as the reliability of the research is concerned. Generally what happens, the respondent will show reluctance. They will not be what you call showing any kind of interest to answer the questions. It's all in the hands of the researcher. Decide in the question structure. What should be the order of the questions? Okay. So confusing, disguising, uninterested questions, if are all involved in the questionnaire design, what happens? It's nothing but the purpose may not be fulfilled. It is going to be wasting of valuable resources like time and other kinds of things. Determine the question wording. This is most important. By using, hi-fi words, understand, confusing words, ununderstandable words, understand, what you call creates disinterest in the minds of the respondents. So while framing the questions, one should see that the simple language should be used so that whatever the level of education or the knowledge of the respondent, they should easily understand the question and focusively should answer based upon the question. That's why determining the question wording is very, very important. Arrange the questions in the proper order. So here the order is very, very important. So numbering of the questions, understand, sequence of the questions. Both the ways is going to convenient as far as the respondent and as well as the researcher. In an appropriate way, the questions have been placed in the order. After the collection of the data, managing the data is going to be very, very easy as far as the research is concerned. Okay, so these are the steps or the what you call process steps as far as the questionnaire design is concerned. This is the continuation. Identify the form and layout. How the questionnaire should appear. In the congested space, if the questionnaire has been created, within a less space, more number of questions. That also leads to the demotivation in the mind of the questionnaire. Appropriate space should be used. On a good paper, the questionnaire should be typed without any typographical mistakes. Understand? So these are all very, very important points. So reproduce the questionnaire. So every time what is required, at the first time itself, no one is going to have the perfect questionnaire in the hands. So that should be what you call pre-tested before resorting for the original research. If at all any changes are required, the adjustments are required, that should be performed. So what you call that? Reproduce the questionnaire and eliminate bugs by pre-testing. If at all confusing kinds of questions are there with confusing ambiguity as far as the words are concerned, okay, order is concerned, okay. So all these things are known as the bugs. So whenever they have been removed, the questionnaire becomes ready to get the data, to collect the data without any difficulty. So these are the various steps. So these are generally the types of the questions already we discussed. The questions unstructured, structured. So what is unstructured? In unstructured kind of questions or questionnaire, there will not be any kind of order. Generally, you will be observing all of a sudden the interviewer interviewing what to call any film star, any cricketer, all of a sudden. Based on that moment, overall by listening all the discussion what will be there, the content will be separated. Okay. Generally unstructured question is going to be most of the time more time consuming. But as far as the structured questions means, the interviewer knows what should be asked before itself, how many questions should be asked before itself, under which what are there multiple choice questions would be there, more than one option would be there, more than two options would be there, three options would be there, which is the best newspaper, best English newspaper. So different names we can give, like what you call Times of India is there, the Hindu is there, Hindustan Times is there, understand? So what you call that multiple choice questions, dichotomous questions, only two options would be there. Which kind of food you prefer? Understand? So based upon taste, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, dichotomous. There is no other way to answer. Scales, understand? The best example is what you call Likert scale. 5 points would be there. In all those 5 are what you call, in some other scales you find 7 points, 9 points also. One of the point should be what you call selected by the respondent. So what you call these types of the questions. This is one of the technique, what you call it, funnel technique. The funnel approach to ordering the questions. What is a funnel? So generally funnel is an instrument very much useful when you pour liquid into a what you called any container. So in the funnel technique what happens? Broad or general questions will be what you call narrowed down into a specific form. This is the beginning, this is the ending. Like what are the categories? First you go for asking basic information. Next you are going to ask for classification information. And finally identification information. So narrow means in this space what will be there, you are going to ask those kinds of questions actually which is useful to your research. What do you call this funnel technique? From broader view to what you call a narrow down view. This is the checklist. So before administering questionnaire to the respondents, every researcher need to check whether these things are, presented in the questionnaire or not. What is that information needed? So I explained. So before framing the questionnaire, what is required? You need to identify the area to which actually your research has been meant for. If you consider your what you called a related example, like let us take the marketing example. If you want to identify the consumer behavior towards what you called acquaintance of any services or any products, you need to create the set of questions, I mean to say questionnaire related to that information. What you call that information needed. So ensure information obtained fully address all components of the problem. Must have clear idea of the target population. If you are understanding the actual service behavior of the supermarkets of Hyderabad, But if you get the information from Karimnagar, from Warangal, what do you mean by that? It leads to the, error as far as the data analysis is concerned. So, according to your research, the population should be what you call belong to Hyderabad only. Population means you should not consider the group of people which are what you call residing in a particular square kilometer area. That is one of the standard definition. But in statistics, population means the group of individuals, the group of what you call items, the group of things on which actually you are conducting any statistical investigation. That means, as far as the statistical population is concerned, few times the population units going to be live, few times the population units are going to be without life. All cars are there. If you want to understand the mileage of the cars, that becomes a population without life. So such a way, locating the population according to your research is very, very important. The next step is interviewing method. Ensure that the proper interviewing method is being used given the study objectives. So there are so many interview methods are there. One-on-one interview method, understand, telephonic interviews, personal interviews, survey methods, understand. So you need to zero in, you need to focus any one of the methods according to your research activity. Step 3 is individual questions. Is each question necessary? Is each question unambiguous? Or the proper number of questions needed to measure a particular construct being asked? The first thing, is each question necessary? Sometimes what happens, in order to create the positive impression, in order to create confidence in the respondent, what is required? Few questions you supposed to ask. Directly you will not be getting the information whatever is required to your research work. But still their presence creates, lot more difference. So you need to decide whether that question is required or not according to the availability of the time of both respondents and as well as the researcher and other valuable resources. Each question unambiguous. This is most important. Unambiguous means should not be confused. Understand? Because sometimes some kind of words what happens leads to the confusion in the minds of what you call the respondent. So better to avoid such a kind of terminology. So always advisable is that the questionnaire should have simple language, or the proper number of questions needed to measure a particular construct being asked. As far as this point is concerned, it's all based upon thumb rule. There actually the experience of the researcher comes into the play. If more number of questions given to the respondent, it also leads to the disinterest in the minds of the what you call the respondent. Most of the times, the questionnaire should be finished within half an hour, within 30 minutes. If interview kind of data collection is there, that may last more than 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. That is altogether different. Okay? So, such a way, what is the meaning of that? Individual questions. This step is very, very important. Inability, unwillingness to answer. Is the respondent informed? Can the respondent remember? Can the respondent articulate? Is the information sensitive? Make the information request legitimate. Minimize effort required of what you call respondent. So all these points to be considered when you are understanding about the ability of the question what you are going to ask. Most of the times when you are asking the personal information of the respondent, like health condition, other personal habits of the what you call the respondent, one needs to be very, very careful. one actually need to be very, very careful, should not what to call cross the limit. So otherwise what happened, it leads to the again demotivation in the minds of the respondent, may not be acquainted the wanted data from the respondent. Question structure, step 5. So use structured questionnaire whenever possible. What is a structured questionnaire? So before itself that questionnaire has been tested on any sample. After that only decision should be made. Yes, the questions what is their order 1 to 10, 1 to 15 going to reveal the wanted kind of data without any deviation. Understand? And also while answering posing the questions, the respondent should have the positive impression. So what you call the structure of the questions? The responses alternate should include all possible answers. So before itself, the researcher should know that what are the possible answers from the respondent. If any expected alternative missing in the choice, what will be there? The respondent may not be in a position to give the wanted answer. So that is the duty of the researcher to take care of while posing a question, all what you call possible answer options are available or not. Response alternatives should be mutually exclusive. This means the provided alternative should be mutually exclusive. So if at all what you call mutually inclusive situation arises, that also leads to the confusion in the minds of the customer. Okay? So let us suppose that which kind of food do you eat? Vegetarian, non-vegetarian, or else what you call you are providing an option, any item of a dish. Understand? It leads to confusion. So you are vegetarian, non-vegetarian, only two options if they provided, that may not lead to the confusion. Again mentioning the food item name also leading to the confusion. So that may not be assumed as a mutually exclusive type. There will not be any kind of vertical interconnection between the choices. Such a kind of what is called alternatives are known as a mutually exclusive. If on a particular question, a large percentage of respondents may be expected to be neutral, include the neutral alternative also. This is one more very, very important option as far as answering the questions are concerned. Based upon the set of questionnaire, based upon the research type, the researchers should take a decision that the option neutral should be opted, should be placed among as the what we call the answer choices. Step 6. Question wording. Use ordinary words. I already told you. If question carries, tough terminology, the difficult words which may not be understood by the respondents, he may not be giving the correct answer. That's why most of the times while framing the sentence of the questions should be what we call having simple words. Avoid ambiguous words. So confusing words should not be there, like usually, probably, normally, etc. Do not use the leading questions. So whenever a question is posed to the respondent, you should have the straightforward answer. That should not lead to some other unexpected answers. So by that, what will be there? The deviation arises in the collection of the data. That's why do not use leading questions. Avoid implicit assumptions. The closed boundary regarding what you called options are concerned also creates error as far as the data is concerned. Hence, avoid implicit assumptions. Use positive and negative statements as much as possible. This is also one more very, very important consideration one need to consider as a researcher while going for designing the questionnaire. Question order. Qualifying questions. First general questions before specific questions. Use logical order. Demographic question should be beginning of questionnaire, end of the questionnaire. So this is nothing but, as I already told you, all the questions, set of questions should be segmented like basic information, classification information, identification information. In every level, few questions should be involved. Generally, demographic information like age, occupation, area of living. Understand, these questions are in the beginning. The respondents, starts showing interest towards the research, towards responding to the researcher. And few what you call demographic questions at the end of the data collection also better to involve. That also create interest in the minds of the customer. With a positive note, he is going to end the answering the questionnaire. That's why demographic should be in the beginning of the questionnaire, end of the questionnaire. So form and layout. Divide questionnaire into multiple parts, number each question, pre-code the questions, keep scale questions in same general vicinity, avoid temptation to fill the blank spaces. So if any respondents finds clutter within the small space, if they find many more questions without appropriate terminology, ambiguity in the ordering of the questionnaire, without proper order, what happens? It leads to the demotivation. The main intention of any researcher should be always, whenever a questionnaire is given to the respondent, he should immediately develop that interest to answer to the questionnaire. That's why looks should be good. The paper, whatever has been used, should be what you call quality paper. So all these things are very, very important. So all this falls under what you called looks and layout as far as what you call questionnaire is concerned. Okay. So long sentences without any subparts provided generally leads to the disinterest. So questionnaire reproduction. So professional appearance, booklet format for long questionnaires, place directions as close to the question as possible, expect reproduction errors. So after experimenting with what are called considerable sample units, so finally one need to decide if at all any changes are required, those adjustments need to be made. So this is pre-testing. Always try to pre-test first, test everything. So pre-test sample should be extremely similar to test sample. Pre-test using same methodology as the main test. It make changes to questionnaire or methodology. Pre-test again before a main test. So without pre-testing, so no researcher advised to go for vertical taking the data immediately. So pre-testing is always advisable. Whether the questionnaire design is absolutely focusing. The information wanted by the researcher is going to be collected or not. Is there any what you call deviation as far as the selection of the statistical tools are concerned? So all these things are important. Okay. So today we had a very, very important discussion about what do you mean by a question, what do you mean by a questionnaire, and what are the various steps, types of the questions, understand, and checklist while going for a questionnaire design. I stop here. Thank you so much.